Yeah, so thanks for having me. I guess my background is that I was working in visual effects and feature animation for a few years after I graduated, and then how I got started in NFTs is basically, well, in 2017 I made my first investments in cryptocurrency just because like it made sense to me. Like I was reading about it and I found the blockchain to be super revolutionary. And then so, yeah, but it wasn't until 2020 when I was actually unemployed that I saw sort of an opportunity to combine sort of like my skill set and this like world of crypto that I have like discovered. And NFTs weren't like that big then, so it was actually during DeFi, what we know as DeFi summer, which was when DeFi started having sort of like this huge surge that I got my start in the industry. And what I was doing was I was just making these little like 30-second animations with different DeFi protocols. And then last year in March, I made the Uniswap V3 animation, and then it went viral, and I auctioned it off as an NFT, and then it sold for a lot of ETH. And PleaserDAO was formed specifically to buy that piece. And so what PleaserDAO was at the time was literally just people who were like in the industry and either like fans of my work or people that I have worked with before. They basically, a bunch of them came together, like DeFi founders, just a lot of like really smart people, like pulled money together and bid on it as a collective, and they won. And I don't know, like life has exploded ever since.
It's kind of crazy. Cool. So you've been at the forefront of like all of this NFT explosion over the past year. It's a new concept for a lot of people. There's a lot of bad NFT takes out there. So I wanted to know, like, what's the funniest or maybe your favorite like bad NFT take, and like how do you address that when someone comes to you like with an NFT take?
Well, recently I saw like a bunch of comments online that were like, oh, NFTs are like beanie babies. Like they're basically saying that it's like a bubble and that it's a fad. And I mean, so that's one of them. And I think, sort of like my response to that is like, well, NFTs are not like beanie babies, because that would be like saying stuffed animals is a scam. It's like stuffed animals is just stuffed animals, right? Like Beanie Babies is a specific brand or product. And so similar with NFTs, right now I feel like it's so new that people are getting it sort of like mixed up. But what NFTs are is really the technology behind, putting this information on the blockchain and storing it as a token of ownership. And so, you could say Bored Apes like can be like Beanie Babies in the future because that's a specific product and brand. Not to fud Bored Apes, like I have apes, so like I want it to go up forever. But I'm just saying, like, you should think of it as the technology behind it and not that. And so, it's like kind of like saying the internet or like electricity is gonna go away or something, but it's not, because it's the technology, right?
Totally. So I want to talk a little bit about the mashup of DAOs and NFTs. So in your mind, how do these two things go together? I guess curious about how can like NFT creators and artists themselves benefit from DAOs, and then also vice versa. How can individuals, provide value for groups? And like, I don't know if you've seen any cool benefits for individuals joining DAOs in the NFT space. Like, what's your take there?
Well, I think, a useful way to think about DAOs right now is that they're kind of basically like decentralized companies, right? And so really what's valuable about it is the fact that it is a collective of, a bunch of different people's brain powers coming together. And, I think the problems and sort of issues that we're facing as like a society are getting more and more complex by the day. And, it's definitely gotten to a point now where I think very, very few individuals can come and solve a problem. And so it needs, the power of a collective to basically come together, and I always think of this as an analogy to like animation, right? Like a Pixar movie takes, a whole studio of like a couple hundred people to make a really, really well-defined and like good animation and final product. And so you can think of like a DAO as the same thing. It like it's the coordination of a lot of people with different skill sets and different areas of expertise and knowledge that come together and create ultimately a better product. And so that's how DAOs can, benefit the individual, is that it's very, you learn a lot and you can create better products working together. And so for the other way around, it's a similar relationship where, if you have something that you think you can contribute to a DAO, then you should join one. And also, I think what's so great about DAOs is like, it's not like traditional companies where I can only, it's like so monogamous, like I can only work for one company. But you can actually be a contributor to multiple DAOs. And so, yeah.
Polydaumerous.
Polydaumerous.
Yeah, agree. So PleaserDAO, right? A lot of awesome things said about it. I like the phrase that PleaserDAO is the people's Louvre of the 21st century. What do you think about that?
Well, that's high praise. I mean, yeah, I think, really the concept behind PleaserDAO is so simple. It's just exploring the idea of collective ownership. And so why it was such a big deal when it happened at the time is because, when I was auctioning off an NFT, it wasn't news that an NFT could be selling for like, $500,000. There were a bunch of NFTs that sold for more than what mine went for. But the reason why people paid attention to it is because before that, there were only sort of like individual collectors who were coming in and, being the power players of the game, right? And that's very sort of akin to what we can see in traditional art today. It's just, it's a game of like very, very wealthy individuals who can sort of like own certain pieces of art. And so when PleaserDAO came in, it sort of, and because, they used a Gnosis safe, which is like an app, a decentralized app that allows people to like pull money together, and it's like kind of like a shared bank account on the blockchain. And so using this kind of technology, it's obviously like pretty like secure, and you can trust it. And then so people started realizing, oh, it doesn't have like you can do more if you come together instead of like one person. Like I'm sure none of us here probably can afford to spend like $500,000 on an NFT, but if we all put in a little money together, then we can. And that really was sort of like the aha moment for when people realized like what PleaserDAO was doing was such a big deal.
Yeah. Another thing that PleaserDAO pioneered is like getting behind some really awesome, like freedom and justice minded social causes, like the Stand With Asians movement. And I know right now you guys are working with the Free Ross DAO. So yeah, talk to me a little bit about why the NFT movement is like positioned to do some of this stuff and social good, and curious if there are like other social issues that you're curious about like diving into with future stuff.
I think there's so many social issues that I care about. If I could, I wish that I could address like every single one of them. And I'm trying to slowly, So my first NFT, obviously I created the Stand With Asians Community Fund. And so all of that, like, $500,000 was donated and spread across like a bunch of different organizations, like 24 organizations actually, and each of them received a $25,000 grant. And recently, they all filed back reports on saying like sort of like what was impacted. And I read, and apparently over 93,000 people's lives were impacted as a result of that donation. And then following that, I also partnered with like Fortune magazine, and then we created like the Fortune Pleaser Fund, which specifically donates to causes that help like free journalism, and obviously being like Fortune is like they are journalism, but I think luckily like my first sale kind of like really inspired all the members of PleaserDAO to actually care about like making a positive social impact and like charitable causes. And so that's kind of just become one of the main pillars of what the DAO like seeks after. So when they went after the Edward Snowden NFT, it's because it supports freedom of the press, and they bought the Tor project, which is also a nonprofit. We obviously support Nadia's work, being that she supports so many many great causes in social justice. And internet privacy is a huge thing that they care about as well. And it's really just, I think it's the culmination of a bunch of people who have benefited from cryptocurrency and want to sort of give back and also spread positivity around crypto because, on the other side, there's a lot of people like saying it's a scam and, all this kind of stuff. And yeah, like this technology is revolutionary, but it will sort of depend on the hands of the people or the intentions of the people behind it. So, if there are bad actors in the space, well, that's just humanity and society in general. We can't sort of prevent that. But what we can do is do our best to try to inspire more people to do better. And I think that's something that, is really important to me and like my personal values and why I do what I do today. And hopefully PleaserDAO will follow as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Amazing to see all the good work that you guys are doing, and definitely, I think, inspiring others in the space. On a similar note, in crypto, I think we see a big battle for like ideas, maybe more of a cultural battle, and good faith is something that a lot of new people in the space are not always gifting us, right? It's cool that NFT sales can be used for all of these amazing charity, social good causes, but there can be a dark side to uncensorability as well. Capital sometimes doesn't always care about the artists. There's because it's so permissionless, you can have maybe hate groups use NFTs for a lot of ways. So I don't know. How do you think about creating healthy norms in communities to ward against this sort of stuff?
I don't know. I always try to remain optimistic and yeah, as I was previously saying, it's just there's always going to be bad people on Earth. I think that's just a matter of life. But I think sort of, at least through my story, it obviously seems to have resonated with a lot of people and has inspired people to be better and, look at crypto differently as well. It's I think so much of our the reporting around NFT sales and stuff revolves around how much this NFT sold for and everything. But, if there's any so I think that's sort of also how I got my start too. They're just oh my God, this NFT sold for $500,000. But now that I have this platform and voice, people are, and when I make, sort of large sum donations, obviously, with the Asian organizations, I could see the impact, but I don't always know if that has, a direct impact or not. But I think what's most important is that these, what I call Chad donations, are causing people to actually pay attention to what I'm saying. And that's the most important part of this, is that I want you guys to be okay, we're actually paying attention to this girl because either something about money, but then what I'm saying is more important part is that if you or anybody else is first, obviously take care of yourself first. Don't go start donating all your money if you're going to be starving as well. But if we're all sort of lucky enough to be in a post-scarcity mindset or have access to give back, or if people make money so easily in a crypto bull run, and so it doesn't hurt to share that with other people, especially people who aren't, I think it takes a certain type of privilege to even have access to crypto, right? You need, first of all, access to internet, be just living in a first world in general. And then so if we can use that and then help sort of amplify that to people in corners of the world who don't have access to that, that's something that is really important to me and makes everything that I'm doing worth it.
Yeah. So the future of NFTs, right? This is just the beginning. Wondering, in 5 years, do you have any predictions about, I don't know, what's still going to be big? What projects might have made the most societal impact? Any hot takes? 5 years.
Man, it's really hard to say because I feel in crypto, everything changes every other day. But what I do know, and this circles back to my original point, is that NFT is a technology is going to stick around for a while. Nobody knows which projects are going to stick around, but I don't think the blockchain is going anywhere. And so, I don't know, I always joke about like the fact that our passports should be NFTs in the future. Like, let's all agree that we never want to go to DMV again. So our driver's licenses should be NFTs. Like, and hopefully we're not even using the term NFTs anymore because it's just going to be like the internet that's so like ingrained in our lives that it's not even a thing that sticks out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it's an incredible moment for people breaking into Web3 right now. What advice would you give to like creatives or maybe people coming from Web2, your type of background, that want to make the leap into the space? Like, what have you learned?
I think, honestly, my advice is just like, you should definitely be participating right now, like whether or not it's just like a part-time thing or a full-time thing. Like the opportunity cost of just not, joining Web3, especially at this point in time, is just going to be so large. I mean, I would love to think, oh, I'm the best animator in the world. I'm obviously not. And the only reason why I can be opened up to so many opportunities is because I just happen to be in the right place at the right time. And so that's just to say that the space is so early right now. Not all of the top talent has come into the space yet. So this is literally your chance to come in. And if you're doing cool work, people will support it.
Yeah. And if you're coming into the space, there's a lot of pain points still. It is very early. That's a good point. So curious to hear, like, what are some of the Web3 challenges that you've encountered or that you would tell people who are coming in that they shouldn't expect? I've heard you talk a little bit about like some of the like struggles with infrastructure like wallets and MetaMask. So yeah, I'm just curious, like, what would you want to see in future versions of like wallets and infrastructure for onboarding people into the NFT space?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was like quoted in an article once that I was saying that Web3 is like being held together by duct tape right now, and that is absolutely a fact. It's just anybody who's actually been in the space and used it, as wonderful as the technology is, because it is so early, like, I don't know, like MetaMask and Ledger and Chrome, like that trio combination is just like actually a nightmare for anybody who's tried to use it. And I think competition is healthy, like sometimes like, right now it's like if I'm trying to suggest, hardware wallets or hot wallets to people, I only have like Ledger and MetaMask because there's no competition, right? And so, I think that's just a matter of time. It's just because we're so early right now. And so, yeah, hopefully, at least on the user experience end, a lot of those things are going to improve. And then not to say like, I would love to be able to see NFTs in my wallet, so if anybody's used like Phantom, like on Solana, for example, you can see NFTs there. And I feel like, for example, like Rainbow is doing this. So they're like a wallet, so yeah, I just think competition is healthy, and I'm looking forward to seeing sort of like the competition advancing like the technology.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe we'll see some stuff come out of the hackathon this weekend. So yeah, NFTs. So before we bring Nadia and Michael back on stage, I'm going to ask one last question. I'm going to actually steal it from them because I really liked it. A better world. So I hear this throughout a lot of the stuff that you're working on. I'm getting the sense that you also may have a vision for a better world and how the work that you do with NFTs and DAOs may weave into that. So yeah, what's your better world?
I think, like I always talk about the state of flow, and I'm somebody who's like fortunate enough now that I can be in a situation but I have gone through the path of like working for other people or like executing other people's visions, and that's always sort of like going to be a thing. But like thinking very optimistically, if things like universal basic income existed, then I think that will just, without us having to worry about literally surviving or paying rent, it's just going to allow so much more brain space for us to be in the state of flow. And the work that you produce, like in the state of flow, is like 1,000 times better than the work that you produce otherwise. And so I think the better world that I'm thinking of, super duper hypothetical and ideal, is that everybody is guaranteed sort of like some kind of basic income. And so they can use their free time to really like expand on things that, everybody's creative, right? Like we talk about artists, like I'm an artist, but that doesn't mean only artists are creative. Like if you're a coder, you're a writer, you're a lawyer, like every human is ultimately creative, and they produce the best work when they're in the creative state of flow. And so in each sort of vertical that everybody's working in, like just imagine the world like operating on like 10 times more creativity than they can, just because people are no longer having to worry about like paying their next meal or month's rent. So that's how I think about a better world.
Love it. Better world, more beautiful world. Cool. Well, thank you. So I think we're going to take the last 10 minutes or so and do